The diplomat's name was Oksana Reed, but in the wastes everyone called her the treader between, half compliment, half accusation. 2 decades after the final spill, when gene-shattering spores rode the wildfire smoke across continents, humanity had dwindled to caravans clustering around broken aquifers. In the vacuum left by cities and nation-states, the beasts of the world rose, their warped intelligence blooming like mold in an untended wound. Pride-led prides of lion things ruled the savannas. Ursine collectivists claimed forests dense with silver-leafed pine, and beneath the cracked highways swam the leviathan unions of carp and catfish, wearing plastic nets as banners. Among the new sovereignties, none were more feared than Corvus Regnant, the Raven Commonwealth. They occupied the skeletal husk of what had once been the hydroelectric installation at Shattergorge. The Ravens called the place the Eyrie of 12 Winds. Every traveler knew to keep away from its soaring catwalks, where black feathers shook loose like soot, and sentinels the size of wolves watched with gleaming garnet eyes. But a problem had arisen, urgent and wretched. 200 human refugees from the dusted plains needed passage through the gorge to the river delta beyond. There, freshwater springs still bubbled untainted, guarded by mellow capybara councils willing to barter, not slaughter. The shortest trail was through Ravenland, and winter storms were already roiling out of the north. Detouring around the gorge would add weeks the refugees did not have, so they petitioned Reed, she who had once negotiated an armistice with the antlered syndicate of elk, to speak for them. Oksana accepted the charge. She greeted the refugees at dawn beneath the rusted ribs of a toppled transmission tower. Their faces were skull-thin, caked in alkaline dust. Some carried infants swaddled in tarp. Others leaned on aluminum crutches. They thanked her with cracked lips. She tightened her wool coat, shrugged into her transcript satchel, and mounted her slate-colored courser, a beast half-horse, half-melanistic stag, gifted by the ungulates she had served before. She rode west, alone, toward the place where water thundered through broken turbines, and the sky spun with black wings. On the third night, as she camped beneath a limestone overhang, pitted by centuries of rain, they came. First, she heard the clicking, a percussion of beaks against stone. Then whispers threaded through the dark like wire. Treader between, flesh envoy, diamond tongue. 10 ravens alighted around her fire, taller than greyhounds, their feathers limned iridescent green in the flame. The leader wore a ring of bronze keys around his neck, jangling as he stepped forward. "I am keeper of doors," he croaked in a voice as clear as any human elder. "The Council of Motes has scented your intent. Speak it now." Oksana rose slowly, palms open. "Your Excellency, I seek audience with the full council. The matter involves a column of human refugees. Safe conduct through Shattergorge, nothing more. A ripple of feathers like wind across grass." "Humans carry rot," another raven hissed, talons tapping impatience. "Rot of ambition, rot of bullets. The gorge remembers their poisons." "We bring no poisons," she said, "only hunger and hope." "Hope is heavier than lead," Keeper of Doors said. "It bends the future toward conflict. Perhaps the council shall weigh that burden. Follow at dawn." The ravens dispersed, tumbling skyward, and the night swallowed their silhouettes. Oksana wondered whether to draft terms in her notebook, but words felt brittle. Instead, she slept lightly, dreaming of a corridor paved in feathers that led nowhere. Morning painted the crags amber. 2 ravens returned, smaller but no less regal, to guide her. She led her mount along a goat track trending downward into the gorge. Shards of old concrete protruded like fossilized teeth. Finally, the trail widened into what had been a service road, now a balcony over a boiling cataract. Above, the dam's bulk loomed, split by an earthquake decades old, its turbine halls open to sky. And there, in the half-collapsed atrium where control panels once glowed, sat the council. 8 ravens occupied a crooked semicircle of perch posts, scavenged from highway guardrails. Each wore trappings, a cowl of postage stamps, a mantle of sea glass beads, a metal hammered from refrigerator coils. 20 lesser ravens lined the rafters, silent witnesses. The air smelled of ozone and fermented berries. Keeper of Doors announced her, then retreated to his post. An old raven, whose right wing shimmered with embedded solar shards, addressed her first. "I am Memory and Sun Scrap, first among equal voices," she said. "You ask rights of way for your mammalkin. Offer your predicate." Oksana bowed. "A drought scours our homeland. The capybara deltas welcome trade, grain for water. My people cannot survive the windward march around your territory. The gorge is quickest, but we will not cross uninvited." A raven draped in tattered circuitry cawed. "Humans squared this gorge to chain the river. Now they weep for river's mercy." Irony curdles sweetly. Oksana acknowledged the rebuke with a somber nod. "Your critique is righteous. The old world ended by our recklessness. The humans I speak for were children when the spill blackened the skies." Memory and Sun Scrap rustled. "Age absolves not affect." "It doesn't," Oksana agreed, "but responsibility must guide possibility. Allow them safe passage. We will pay tribute. Tools of iron, sacks of dried beans, sonar tablets, whatever you request within our power." A low thunder of wings as the council conferred. Finally, a raven with a river-smoothed pebble glued over one eye rasped. "Tributes rot, as do bargains. The gorge suffers every boot print. Why should we not ask instead for the end of the line? Let the refugees join your ancestors' bones in the dust, lessening future trespass." The bluntness cut like a saw. Oksana inhaled slowly. She looked at the cataract, white and furious, remembering the infants wrapped in tarp. "Because mercy nourishes the continuum," she replied. "Because one day, the ravens of this gorge may need a debt repaid." Laughter rippled among rafters. "Ravens need no alms of meat walkers," some called. Yet Memory and Sun Scrap lifted a wing for silence. "Debt, perhaps, but maybe wisdom. Humans have pocketed cunning forms, numbers, maps, archive spores our hatchlings cannot yet decipher." She cocked her head. "Prove to us your people are not hollow of learning. Give us a gift of mind, not matter." Oksana's pulse quickened. She had anticipated barter of supplies, not knowledge. But the council's gaze was a net she could not wriggle from. "What knowledge do you seek?" A cacophony of suggestions poured in. Flight dynamics, alloy smelting, hydrochemistry. Finally, Memory and Sun Scrap declared, "Tell us how to heal Metalfoot." She extended her injured wing, and Oksana saw the solar shards were embedded in a lattice of scar tissue. "When we perch upon the rust, broken filaments pierce flesh. Infection claims many fledglings. You healed the antlered syndicate of bone mites, did you not?" "I provided them with an antiseptic recipe from pre-spill archives," Oksana said. "Then render like aid to us. Teach it in full. Leave records we can replicate unaided. Do so, and perhaps your pilgrims may pass." Oksana's mind raced. She had medical files in her satchel, but customizing treatment for mutated avians would take study, time the refugees lacked, yet refusing meant failure. She straightened. "Grant me 3 days. I'll examine the injuries, test salves, and write instructions." 2, the council countered. "Done?" she said, before doubt could surface. Her mount was led to a stable of hanging crates. A nest mat woven of copper wire and straw was offered to her. As dusk bled across the gorge, she began. First night, inquiry, memory, and sun scrap allowed Oksana access to the rookery. She donned nitrile gloves while fledglings hopped around her boots. Lesions dotted their scaly feet, where rust flakes and microplastics lodged. Swabs revealed fungal co-colonies and metal ions leaching into tissue. The mutation had toughened keratin, but thinned dermis, elevating infection risk. She scribbled notes: collation essential, need antifungal plant bactericidal, avoid petroleum carriers, raven's groom feathers with beak, ingestion risk. She rummaged her pack: alcohol tinctures, powdered willow bark, a vial of nanoclay the elk had given her. Too little. She required zinc oxide, chitosan, and an adhesive base. Supplies? She queried a raven quartermaster who wore a belt of scavenged bottle caps. He led her through turbine chambers, turned storerooms. Shelves held unbelievable odds: solder wire, pine resin blocks, desiccated seaweed, even surgical sutures pilfered from a derelict hospital. Ravens were tireless collectors. She could fashion a salve: chitosan from ground crustacean shells mixed with pine resin as carrier, buffered with willow bark salicylates, fortified by zinc scrounged from carbon zinc batteries. She requested a mortar and set to work. Second day, formulation. At sunrise, she boiled rainwater, steeped willow bark. Meanwhile, juvenile ravens cracked batteries with precision beaks, extracting grayish paste. She neutralized it over fire, producing zinc oxide. She powdered dried crab shells, gift from the otter guilds, the raven said, and combined ingredients into a pale green poultice. Application trials on 3 adult volunteers commenced. Oksana wrapped their feet in cleaned spider silk binder. She drafted illustrated instructions on salvageable plastic sheets using indelible ink. Her translator device recorded audio in common tongue and Corvid sign clicks. But midday brought setback. A test subject convulsed, respiratory rate plummeting. Oksana realized the pine resin carried trace terpenes toxic to avians. She halted trials, flushed the wounds, administered diluted charcoal slurry. Night loomed. 1 day left. She paced the concrete ledge, thinking. Alternative base, beeswax, none available. Seaweed. The storeroom held strands of kelp, alginate. She mashed kelp with boiled water, producing viscous gel. Its ionic nature could cross-link with calcium in blood, sealing lesions whilst releasing salicylates. She remade the salve, applied anew. This time, no distress. The raven's eyes glittered approval. Third dawn, verdict, memory, and sun scrap, and the full council gathered on a sun-bleached girder. Oksana presented the formula, the illustrated sheets, the recorded clicks. The treated volunteers flexed talons proudly. Lesions showed reduced swelling. The council's silence weighed an eon. Finally, Solar Shardwing dipped her beak. Affirmed, training staff will replicate under Moon's transit. She gazed directly at Oksana. Now, matters of passage. Hope bloomed, yet negotiations seldom ended with agreement's first clause. Conditions. Keeper of doors unfurled a parcel, a hand-drawn map. We will mark a corridor through the gorge, he said. Your refugees must stay upon it, no foraging off trail. They pass by daylight only. Our hatchlings hunt the dusk, linger and face beak law. They must bear no firearms. Oksana nodded. Acceptable. We have few working guns. We'll stow them. Second, said the pebble-eyed raven, they will leave tribute of seeds, sunflower if they possess, pumpkin at least, at 3 cairns along the path. Done, Oksana confirmed. Our stores include gourds. Third, croaked another, feathers braided with Ethernet cable. 2 human youths will remain in the gorge for 1 season to learn our ways and teach letters, an exchange of apprentices. Oksana hesitated. The refugees were war-weary. Asking parents to surrender children would wound morale, but refusal might shatter the compact. Volunteers only, she bargained, and after 1 season, any who wish may return north. The council traded glances. Memory and Son Scrap clicked her tongue. Volunteers, yes. Return option, yes. But must be at least 1 youth, else knowledge flow stagnates. Oksana agreed. Quills scratched parchment. The Treaty of Shattergorge was born. Farewell. They granted her a raven escort back to the refugee camp. 3 black forms flitting like ideas at the edge of vision. When she arrived, the dust-blown caravan erupted in cheers. She relayed terms. Some grumbled at the seed tribute. Others clenched fists at the apprentice clause. Yet 2 teenagers stepped forward before dissent could fester. Lena, a bright-eyed girl who had nursed her siblings through plague, and Hugo, a lanky boy obsessed with broken radios. Their guardians wept, but allowed it. Oksana privately told them, observe, teach, stay clever. The ravens respect cunning more than strength. The crossing 4 days later, the column wound into the gorge. Oksana rode at point, flanked by sentinel ravens. The cataract's spray cooled blistered skin. They deposited sunflower seeds at the first cairn, an upturned traffic cone adorned with vertebrae. At midday, the caravan halted, where the trail narrowed. Above, juvenile ravens perched, watching. A toddler named Apurva stumbled, nearly tumbling into the torrent. A sentinel raven dove, catching her jacket hood and talons, lifting her back to ground. The child giggled. The sentinel ruffled feathers in embarrassment, then resumed duty. Murmurs spread, fear tempered by wonder. Noon of the 2nd day, they reached the central square of the shattered powerhouse. There, Lena and Hugo parted from their families, ascending a rope ladder to rookery platforms. Hugo presented the ravens with a rewired solar radio he had built. He tuned it, and music crackled out. An old waltz whose name none remembered. The ravens tapped their talons in syncopation. Lena offered a storybook salvaged from a school. Pages patched with duct tape but legible. Memory and Son Scrap accepted both offerings, eyes soft as mist. The caravan moved on. Late afternoon, thunderheads bulged above. Oksana urged pace. They reached the western rim by dusk, emerging onto grasslands where storm-born rainbows arched. Behind them, ravens traced spirals in the sky, then vanished into cloud. Aftermath, the Delta welcomed the refugees under capybara arbitration. Water was traded for grain. Gardens sprouted. The young apprenticed pair sent word 3 months later. They were thriving. Lena had learned Corvid mathematics, base 14. Hugo and Keeper of Doors co-authored a treatise on solar array maintenance. They would stay another season by choice, and some ravens planned a reciprocal envoy to the Delta. Oksana Reed, treader between, carved the treaty onto copper foil and buried a copy at the gorge's midpoint, sealed in resin. She knew alliances were like birds in flight, beautiful, vulnerable, always threatening to break formation. But for one crucial passage, mercy had triumphed over memory's scorched talons, and that was enough. Years later, travelers spoke of Shattergorge not as a place of death, but as the Raven Gateway, where black wings and human hands had clasped across the chasm. And whenever Oksana rode the frontier, she carried in her satchel a single black feather, gifted by Memory and Son Scrap, to remind the world that even in ruin, negotiations could seed new constellations of trust, sharp as beaks, bright as hope.